Okay, here we go. Good evening, Mr. Mummy. How are you?
Good.
Fantastic. Thanks for taking the time to meet with me today. It's much appreciated. My name is Alex Dilsford-Falls. I work here at Pasco Legal. The reason I've asked to meet up with you tonight is to discuss Pasco Legal potentially representing you in your debt recovery claim against Railway Enterprises.
Yes.
Fantastic. So am I right in understanding that you've already commenced this action in the District Court of Western Australia?
Yes.
Great, fantastic. And from what I understand, you would now like to discuss us here at Pasco Legal taking over the matter and representing yourself until everything is completed, right?
Yes.
Great, fantastic. Well, we have a few things to talk over then, so we'll get straight into it. Now, from what I've read, the action relates to breach of contract, and your company is claiming $495,000 for said breach.
Yes.
So now, as I understand it, Railway Enterprises is claiming that they have not and will not pay their outstanding debt because they allege that the work done by your company was not up to standard.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I'm glad we're on the same page here. So when I spoke to you over the phone earlier, you mentioned that you had been reading about scale and you asked if I could explain that a little bit more.
Yes.
Fantastic. That's not a problem. Now, just so you know, here at Pasco Legal, we don't work on scale, and I'll get through to discussing why that is later on. But I'll just give you a quick rundown of what scale actually is. So, is that all right?
Yes.
Fantastic. So scale is outlined in the legal profession at Supreme and District Court's Contentious Business Determination of 2022. In simple terms, where there is no cost agreement between the client and the firm representing them, the scale outlines the maximum amount that the firm can charge. Now the scale goes up depending on the years of experience that the lawyer has and the kind of work that they are doing. Now I did mention that we enter into a cost agreement here at Pasco Legal, and as such you have certain rights in relation to that, all right? So firstly, you have the right to negotiate the terms of the cost agreement, and that includes the billing method used to calculate said charges. And you also have the right to get legal advice on the proposed cost agreement, and we encourage you to do so with a legal practitioner who is independent from us here. Ultimately, we just want everyone to be happy and informed as to what's going on here.
Yes.
Excellent. Now, I've supplied you with a letter which sets out the proposed cost agreements earlier, and I'm glad you've read that. I understand you've looked at the scale, but just so you're aware, it is very common for quality representation to charge above scale, and that's what we do here at Pasco Legal. Amy Pasco, who's the firm's principal, will be acting primarily for you on this matter. Now, Amy charges $500 an hour, but just to note that doesn't include GST. So obviously with GST, that'll be $550 an hour. Now, Amy will of course have other lawyers that within the firm help her work on your matter. And this is actually good news for you because the other lawyers are more than competent to perform the work that she's going to give them. And they are charged at a much lower rate than Amy. So I'll just go through the hourly rate of the other lawyers. Now for senior lawyers are those that are 7 years or more post-admission, they charge $490 an hour. For junior lawyers, that's been 2 to 7 years post-admission, are charged out at $400 an hour. Restricted lawyers, that's up to 2 years post-admission, is $360 an hour. And we do have some paralegals, they're charged out at $280 an hour.
Yes.
How does that sound so far?
All good.
Fantastic. So now this cost agreement, if you agree to it, it is a contract, and as such you'll be legally bound to pay the proposed costs. Furthermore, the proposed costs on the letter do not include GST, so please calculate that into your considerations when assessing the cost letter later on. So I'm just going to quickly go through the total cost estimate. So now you would have seen the letter contained a table. It pretty clearly outlines the breakdown of the costs. The table outlines the breakdown of the work that we expect will need doing and the associated costs with said work, right up to if the matter goes to trial, which it very well may not. A lot of matters will settle before trial, and obviously then we won't have to pay the associated trial costs. So I just wanted to note to you that these figures and the total figures are an estimate. It may end up costing less, if we don't go to trial, obviously. There's a lot of things that could bring the cost down, but there are also a number of factors that could bring the cost up. Trials could sometimes go for longer, or they can be put off, or more work can be needed than we first thought. But that being said, we are pretty good with our estimates, and I'll quickly go through the costs. So step 1 would be amend pleadings up to the close of pleadings, it's $15,000. Step 2 is discovery and inspection, it's $5,000. Step 3 is entry for trial, including pre-trial conferences and listing conference, which is $10,000. Step 4, preparation of case for trial, including drafting witness statements, subpoenas, experts briefing, and all work necessary for proceeding to trial, is $50,000. Step 5, attendance at trial and all necessary work to receive final orders, $20,000. and council fees and other disbursements anticipated, such as expert, $50,000. So that being said, the total legal costs are $150,000. As I said, this doesn't include GST, so please factor that in. We've prepared these costs according to the instructions that you've given us, and moving forward, if you choose to do so, we will keep you informed of all the crucial stages in the matter, and we won't progress without seeking your approval at each important step. Furthermore, if anything costs more than what we've estimated here, we'll of course inform you and we'll seek your approval before proceeding. And on that note, we'll try and keep legal costs down as much as we possibly can. Obviously, we know that you're money sensitive, so yeah, costs will be kept down as much as we practically can. Finally, if the matter does settle before trial in a pre-trial conference or mediation, then obviously we'll not proceed to trial and the associated fees with the trial don't apply. So as I mentioned before, Pascoe Legal does not operate on the scale costings we discussed before. You can find firms that do operate on the scale, and if that's what you want to do, then please go ahead. But here at Pascoe Legal, we are considered experts in the field, and as such, that's why our total legal costs reached $150,000 mentioned before. I do need to tell you that if you are successful at trial, you can claim costs. Now, the costs will not cover all the $150,000 we've mentioned. It's likely that it will cover somewhere around 60%. But keeping that in mind, on the other side, if you are unsuccessful at trial, you may be liable to cover 60% of Railway Enterprises costs. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And it's also why a lot of matters settle before trial. Look, I hope that kind of clears things up and gives you a little bit more insight. I'll let you go away for a bit and think about that if you'd like.
Yes.
Fantastic. That's not a problem. Mr. Mumming, thanks for coming in today and taking the time to go over this with me. And you contact us whenever you're ready.
Thank you.
Thank you.